I'm Kyle. If you don't know me, if you haven't been on our webinars, I'm a senior solutions consultant. Wish I could speak. Senior solutions consultant with Price Labs. Basically, what my role is here is to do a little bit of teaching, a little bit of sales, and a little bit of account management. I typically help our enterprise level customers, implement their strategy, understand how Price Labs works, and get the most out of the tool, so to speak. So, thank you again for joining us. I see my guy Mitch in here. Hey, Mitch, how are you? One of the customers that I work with. Yeah, so we're going to give this another minute or two, let some more people trickle in here. If you don't mind, got a couple of, housekeeping things, so to speak. If you have any questions, please throw those in the Q&A area. Typically, we're gonna try to leave about 15 to 20 minutes towards the end of this for Q&A. So if you have specific questions about your properties, your market, and it's something that I have knowledge about, more than happy to help with it. If it's a question that I can't really answer, or I think maybe, we might need to hop in and look at your account or something, I'm going to suggest you go over to support@pricelabs.co and ask that question. But in the meantime, you also have the fun little chat area. So if you don't mind, throw out there where you guys are from, where your properties are located, maybe how many properties you have. Who knows? You can always find somebody in these chats that you might be able to bounce ideas off as well. Maybe make a little bit of a friend. So give this one more minute. I see my guy Jamal. Hey, Jamal. Good to see you again. Well, I guess it's not Jamal, it's his note taker, so he'll hear this, I suppose. But we're going to get started now. Thank you all for joining us. Actually, make sure I'm sharing the right stuff first. All right. Let's get in here and ready now. All right. So thank you all again for joining us. If anybody trickles in here in a little bit, throw your name into the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from. Any questions, put it in the Q&A. But again, I'm your host today. I'm Kyle. I'm a senior solutions consultant with Price Labs. I'm joined by my teammate Shweta today. She'll be assisting with any technical errors that I may have. Make sure I'm sharing my screen right and help with questions and things like that. But today, the topic and what we're really going to be focusing on is making sure we're ready for these upcoming holidays. We're a couple of weeks. We're a week and a half away from Halloween. Certain markets that might have an impact. If you're in Nashville, Halloween's on a Friday, it's going to have a little bit of impact. We're not really going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about the Christmas holidays, the religious holidays that surround it. We're going to talk about New Year's Eve. And then also you'll see on some of the listings that I pull up, other little events and things like that as well. So how are we going about looking at certain things like our booking window, how we're pacing, what is going on in our market? We're going to do a nice little deep dive and hopefully help you understand where to look in Price Labs to really maximize your output. So first things first, let me get over here. Our agenda today, and I guess I should be presenting this full screen, shouldn't I? Do that. So our agenda today, we're going to start with why do these checks matter? You're coming up on a very, very important time where ADRs can be very, very healthy. But if you are not in line with market, it could be the difference between making really, really great revenue during this peak season or having to, wait till the very end and cut your legs out from underneath you. The next part that we're going to look at is really analyzing your booking pace and the demand with the booking curves. Then we want to look at being able to protect your calendar, make sure that you are in line with minimum stays. For a majority of the folks joining us today, you're going to be right in that peak booking window. So we're about a month out from Thanksgiving. A lot of you should have already gotten some Thanksgiving traffic. This is kind of the last push for that Thanksgiving traffic. I think we all know the last push for the holiday seasons that are coming up at the end of the year and for New Year's, that typically happens around Thanksgiving. So when you get those big gatherings of for Thanksgiving, a lot of things are decided. A lot of things are decided around your Christmas holidays, your Hanukkah holidays, things like that, New Year's Eve, as well as spring break going into 2026. So keep that in mind. We're not going to cover the spring break times, but if you're in a heavy spring break area, let's go ahead and apply what we learned today and take a look there as well. Excuse me. Then the next thing we're going to look at is making sure that we're consistent all the way across our portfolio. So we're going to cover how to utilize groups in Price Labs and make quick adjustments that we need to very, very fast. Then we're going to end with our Q&A session. All right, so talking a little bit about market context, there's every market's going to be different. But I think we all know for a majority of markets, Thanksgiving, fall breaks are going to be important to our ability to generate revenue. Make sure we get that traffic. Demand around Christmas is really high this year. Demand around New Year's Eve is exceptionally high, especially if you're in one of those really popular city markets as well. And then we'll talk a little bit about some other national or regional holidays. If you have a particular holiday that we don't see covered in here, or a particular event. Maybe it's the big sporting event that's coming up. Maybe it's Bears versus Packers or something like that. Throw that in the Q&A and we can discuss that very unique use case as well. But for the most part, we're going to focus in on these particular areas where we've got really, really high demand. All right, so let's start by analyzing our booking pace. I'm going to hop out of this real quick and we're going to come into Price Labs and I'm going to back out. I was in a listing. Now, a lot of you all may be starting from the pricing dashboard. You may be starting from the multi-calendar view. Both of these views are perfectly great for you for a large property manager. If you're not using this particular view multi-calendar, be very, very advantageous for you. So consider coming out and checking this out. It's basically your tape chart where you can do a lot of bulk things at one time. But we want to focus on your booking window and our pacing. So I'm going to come right here. If you didn't see where I went, portfolio analytics right here up top, and then to pacing report. Now, you may or may not have this filter pop up. If you do, one thing that I always love to look at, especially when I'm trying to see what my pacing looks like, I want to come in and I want to turn sync on and off. And I want to turn on, or I want to look at just the listings that I am currently pricing in Price Labs. So I've got sync on here. I'm not going to dive too much into this, but what we're going to look at with this is all of the properties that I have that are syncing. What I would want for you to do is take what we do here, apply it at this level. So let's look at the whole picture and get a view there. But then you can also come back in here later and add some additional filters in here as well. So if you want to look at an individual listing or a couple of individual listings, you can click right here and add those in. If you wanted to look at a particular group, like maybe you're segmented out and you want to look at your 4 bedrooms that are in the ski market right now, and then you want to look at your 3 bedrooms that are in the ski market. So make sure that you come in here and remember that you can look at these very, very, you can look at them granularly, or as a group, or as the whole picture, so to speak. One additional filter that may be really, really beneficial for you, especially if you're looking at listings or groups, is this first reservation date filter. This allows you to kind of come in and do an apples to apples comparison. So as an example, I could come in and say, my first reservation date was before, and let's just say 11/01/2024. That means what is returned to me is only properties that I have syncing that I had a reservation on prior to Thanksgiving of last year. So essentially, I'm looking at stuff that's been in my program for a while. This would take out anything that maybe you just brought in over the past 3 months that doesn't have that year over year comparison. So keep in mind we can look at that. But for simplicity's sake, we're just going to look at sync on right now. I'm going to hit apply filter, and this will take just a second for us to load up. One key note about what I'm presenting, the data that's in this portfolio analytics is considered dummy data. So the filtering doesn't work exactly the same way. Like I don't have the groups connected and all that. So we are going to look at this as the broad view and then discuss some of those other use cases as well. But what I want you to do, and if you're following along, let's go ahead and go through those steps as well. And let's filter down again to just the sync on ones. And up top here, we've got our pacings report. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but in this pacings report, it's very beneficial. You can see our listed price right here. That's a single line for you. Here, I can see how I'm pacing versus myself year over year. So for occupancy, I can see for the month of October, I'm a little behind, not too much. November looked pretty good. December, January, I'm performing really well right now. So I can kind of see this pacing. But if you have a market dashboard, if you have that comp set created over here, you can come in and select your market dashboard. That will bring in some market data up here for your top few graphs. This is not the point of where we're really looking at though. What I want us to come in and look at is right here at our booking curves. So what we see right here is a lot of colors, a lot of information for you. It's kind of hard to digest right now what you see. What I want you to do is right up here. So you've got booking curves, current selection. If you hit that gearbox, you can go from current months to comparison mode. And mode allows you to look at your individual month versus last year's month to really dial it in and key in and see what's different. So let's go ahead and I'm going to slide over to November and hit apply. This will take just a moment to load. Actually, it didn't take long at all. All right, so right here, this is my total revenue. So what I can see is, man, I've been up the whole time. My revenue is up, but there is a caveat to this. I've added listings this year that weren't in program last year. So obviously, if I have more listings, my revenue should be up. This view is not incredibly impactful for me, right? But I'm going to come down here next, and we have our occupancy chart. So occupancy, again, this blue line that we see is this year's data. That choppy line is last year's data. What I can look at and say is essentially, I got a booking about a year in advance. And previously, in the previous year, I did not have that booking in advance. So up until we get to about right here, about 150 days out, that one booking is showing that, hey, I'm outperforming everything. You can see right here, we're still outperforming, but right about here, about 67 days out, we start getting a lot closer to last year. Last year's occupancy is really catching up right here, and it just continues to catch up. So what I can look at right here and infer is that most likely, unless I make a change, my occupancy for this year is going to fall underneath this line, and I could end up finishing somewhere around here. So let's say around 45%. That's a way to kind of look at this. Now, why is this catching up like that? And I want to come down next. We're going to look at our ADR charts, and we can very clearly see what's happening right here, in my opinion. So let's correlate this spot right here on our rates, where essentially our booked ADR was coming in at about the same as last year. And if we correlate that up to that occupancy chart, occupancy was still beating last year. But right at this moment, it's like something changed with my rate strategy. Maybe I didn't come in and do the same drop. Maybe there's something I've changed with my pricing structure, but there's something happening here where my ADR is staying high. It's correlating and messing up with my occupancy. So to me, what this kind of says is if I want my occupancy to be more reflective of last year and I want to overtake it and get it up into this area, I probably need to come back on rate a little bit, right? We say that, but there's always that other side of it as well, which is that minimum length of stay. So I can see my occupancy starting to creep into last year. My ADR is still a little high, and I don't know what my minimum length of stay is versus the market right now. So I'm going to take notes of that. And then if we come down and take a look at our RevPAR is not being impacted as much by that ADR and by the occupancy that we see. So if I came in and I just looked at these graphs and I said, let me look at my total revenue, let me look at my RevPAR, I may not come in and make any changes. But again, I've had a listing count increase. We've added 10 to 15 units over this time. So these metrics should be much higher. That's when it's really important to come in and understand where things are at and potentially get ahead of them. So one thing I want to look at right here is these particular dates. So right here, we are 120 days out when my ADR starts to creep up over last year, so to speak, right? And right here, I'm about 40, let's say 50 days out is about where, oh gosh, we're really messing up with occupancy. We could potentially make a change. So I can now take these numbers, the 120 and that 50, and apply it to these other areas as well. So for November, particularly around Thanksgiving time, we have a lot of work we can do bringing the ADR down, so to speak. And the best time period from our analysis right here is between day 120 and day 50 out. Obviously, we've already passed that time, so we need to make an adjustment. But that 120 to 50 can be impactful now for Christmas, for New Year's, and for your spring break as well. Keep in mind, not talking about spring break, but if I know for November that my strategy kind of flipped about 120 days out, I can use that just as extra information for when I look in the future as well. So now let's hop up here and let's switch out to November, or I'm sorry, switch out to December and see what kind of trends we pick up there as well. Again, we should see our revenue above absolutely what we see. I'm going to skip past these. We should see our RevPAR increasing, but really RevPAR is not that far up. My RevPAR in November looks a heck of a lot better than my RevPAR did in December. So now again, let's key in on the ADRs and on our occupancy. So when I look at my occupancy, it's pretty much following along the exact same trend. It looks like we might be getting a little bit of a bump up here. So we're about 70 days out right now, and my occupancy slightly ahead of last year. So I'm going to make note of that. And if we look down here at day 70, where our rates are falling in line, our rates previously had been coming in at a little bit less than what they should have been. But right now we're kind of getting booked at about that same rate as we had last year. So what I would look at this and say is, unfortunately, and please keep in mind, this is not Kyle doing poor revenue management. This is all dummy data. I'm not actually getting ADRs that are actually like $50 less. What this symbolizes to me is that I probably wasn't aggressive enough with my ADR on the far out bookings. And I'm kind of sitting about flat where I am. But keep in mind, if I've added 10 to 15 units, and my RevPAR is following along the exact same as last year, I'm technically down. So what I would need to do, I think I need to come in and potentially make some type of an adjustment here. Now with this one, my occupancy is falling right in line. ADR is about the same. I'm going to wonder first on this one, based off what I'm seeing, is it the minimum length of stay that's holding me back? So for this one in particular, for December, I think that's going to be what we look at. So for November, I want to look at my minimum length of stay, make sure it's in line with market. For November, I also want to check my ADRs, probably might need to come down a little bit on that. For December, first thing I'm checking is my minimum length of stay. And then I'm also going to check if there's any opportunities that I could potentially come in and tweak up my rate slightly, maybe make up for some of this, but I'm only going to do that kind of at a listing level, so to speak. And again, this is a broad view of the whole portfolio. I would want you to come in here and dial it in a little bit more. So come in here, pick a group, select one of your groups, and look at it that way as well. The more dialed you are, the more granular you are with these, the better insights you're going to get out of it. So basically what I've got now, November, we're checking minimum length of stay, potentially bringing our rates down. For December, I'm going to check my minimum length of stay. I think there's an opportunity on certain listings potentially to increase slightly, but I'm going to take a look at that at the listing level. The next one we're going to take a look at, let's hop over and let's get into early January. So we're going to look at the full month of January here and see how we're looking. And again, keep in mind, this is a apples to apples comparison, what we're looking at right now. This is your pacing versus last year. And we can see where you finish as well over here. Revenue's up. That's what we should be seeing. RevPAR is up. That's what we should be seeing. Oh boy, occupancy is up. That's what we should be seeing, especially when my booked ADRs are coming in this low. Please, again, keep in mind, Kyle is not getting properties that were booked at an average of 757, booked at an average of 274. Dummy data. But what I can take from this is I really missed out my opportunity to increase these rates. So my occupancy is taking off. My occupancy is driving this RevPAR as well as that unit growth that I have, but I'm getting hurt with ADR. So the first thing I'm going to look at for the New Year's Eve time period is going to be those properties that are still available. Do I have any room to move up on those? Do I have any properties during the December to January that aren't performing well? Want to make sure those minimum lengths of stay are in line. But generally speaking, for New Year's, I think with what I have left, there might be some room to add a little extra on top. Now, keep in mind our numbers from before, 120 and 50. So in between that area. For the December look that we had, around day 70, we started getting kind of parallel to the market last year. So I'm going to take those numbers, day 50 and day 70, and I can use that right now and kind of say, okay, I'm 101 days away from completion for January. What if for the next 15 to 20 days, really the next 30 days, if you wanted to get to that day 70, what if I increase my rate slightly during that period? You could go in and test it and do it that way. So let me make a note of this. I want to look at January, 1st of January, potentially bumping it up, but I want to compare minimum length of stay first. So in here, again, you can come in, you can look at it at the group level, look at it at individual listing levels, and you're going to get so much better insights. Just as an example, may happen, the sky's the limit. And I don't think this will show any drastic changes, but let's see if it does. What I believe is going to happen is we're going to just end up seeing these same graphs. Doo-doo. And taking a second for us. Here we go. All right, so now we've got a little bit better view. We're looking at the individual listing. And when I come in here and look at it again, these graphs didn't change because of the setup of my account. But what I could look at with this one is previously we were looking at the whole picture. Now I've dialed it into an individual listing. I see that my booked ADR is coming in way lower than expected. So now I know I can go take a look at that listing or that group, make a quick adjustment to bump things up. So keeping that thought process in mind, we're looking at Sky's the Limit as a listing. This is a property that is right outside of the Wintrust Arena in Chicago. And that's kind of be the default for what we look at next. So I'm gonna hop over here and let's take a look at that one. So again, we're focusing in on Thanksgiving, we're focusing in on the Christmas time period and New Year's Eve. Thanksgiving, I want to check my minimum length of stay, potentially bring the rate down if I need to. I also want to take a look at in December, my minimum length of stay, potentially increasing if I need to. And then for January, for this one, I need to raise the rates big time if I still have availability, in my opinion, for this. So let's take a look now. We're going to hop out into November. And what we've got here is Thanksgiving. So this property, it's already booked out. I don't really have concerns about this one. Obviously, if you have a property that's not booked out, we want to check our minimum length of stay. And I can see right now I'm at 2 for the Wednesday and the Thursday, but I'm at 3 for the Friday and 3 for the Saturday. So if I come in here and I say, I'm good with those 2 nights, I need to see what else the market's doing. So I'm at 2 and 3 on Thanksgiving. You make note of that. And just to kind of stay focused on this minimum length of stay, let's look at what I've got for Christmas. Christmas is also booked up right now for me. I had a 4-night minimum length of stay for Christmas. And then for New Year's, I am running between a 3 and a 4-night, depending on when it is. So if they're wanting to come in, excuse me, if they want to come in and start on Tuesday, they're going to have to take Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then check out on the 1st. If they want to come here, they're going to have to be here, 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 and check out on the 3rd. So I do have a little bit of restriction in here with New Year's. Keeping in mind what we saw, my rates are my ADR across my portfolio is coming in really low for New Year's. Maybe that's because I'm too restrictive with this. Maybe I'm having to bring my rates down too much, so to speak. That's a way to look at it. I'm going to come back up now and let's look at what the rest of the market is doing. So right here, you've got neighborhood data. We're going to go there. Hopefully everybody that's in here understands this neighborhood data area. If you are not familiar with this neighborhood data area, throw us a message on either chat or Q&A We'll try to get somebody on a call with you to kind of show you this around, or we can send you some information. This is really, really important to understanding how Price Labs comes up with recommendations, why rates are the way they are. But it's also your resource where you can come in and get some really good information pretty quickly at an individual listing and market level. So first things first, we've got our pricing up here. If you aren't familiar with this, the black line is going to be where your rate is at right now with Price Labs. The colors that you see in the background are market percentiles. So essentially, if like right here where our rate gets up into that lighter pink, that's a signal that that listing has a ton of demand right there. So we're bringing the rates way up for you and getting you towards the top end of the market. Whereas like right here, we're getting you down towards the bottom end of the market because there's very, very little demand. If you want to, you can come in and add some other fun things in here, so to speak. So you can plot out your upcoming bookings, your last year bookings, same time last year bookings if you want to. You can come in. You also have this fun one, which is market booked price. Anytime there's at least 5 bookings, you see that little blue line that popped up. That is the average, or I'm sorry, that's the median price of the ADRs that are coming in for you. Then also down here on occupancy chart, we get to see kind of how the market is meeting itself. Anywhere where the red line is below the gray line, that means the market is underperforming last year. If red's on top of the gray, like what we see right here for Thanksgiving, that means the market is outperforming itself. So what you can expect is a little bit of an increase in total market occupancy there, but it also symbolizes that people are booking a little bit further out, which means your booking window potentially has changed a little bit as well. Nice brief overview of neighborhood data. Again, if you want some further details about this, let us know and we'll get you the resources for that. And here's where we get really, really good with it, and that's that competitor map. Got a nice summary right here if you want to take a look at that. I'm just going to kind of gloss over this real quick. This competitor map's very beneficial for you. So if you don't have this built out with a couple of people around you so that you can keep an eye on how things are moving, 100% suggest that. If you can be as granular as possible, pick out some that are really, really good comps. But by doing so, we can come in and we get a really good view of how the market is performing. Brief overview of this competitor listing. Anywhere where you see this, where it's grayed out and it has the slash through it, that was the last seen price that we had. The assumption is that it was booked, but there's always a chance that maybe somebody had it listed and then they take it out and it ends up being an owner stay or a maintenance block or something like that. But anytime you see this, it means that it was available at that rate and at that minimum length of stay, and then it no longer was. Anywhere where you see this, where it's just NA, that means it was not available at any point in time. So what I want to look at now, remember, we're going to key in on a couple of things. Let me get down here. And I'm going to take a few of these off just so we can get everything in one view real quick. So let me just arbitrarily take some off. All right, so now we can all kind of see this together. And I want to focus in on, let's get over here to Thanksgiving time period. So right here in Thanksgiving, I'm booked up, but I don't have any real concerns about it. But I still want to check and see what I'm looking like. I was at 2 nights and I got an average booking around, let's say 190 is my rough math there. This person's competing with us at 2 nights. This person had 3 nights in there. So I made the right choice being at 2 nights a little bit quicker. I got booked up at a higher ADR and I got a nice long stay, probably because I was much more visible before somebody else was, so to speak. But we can see right here, the last seen rate that we had, we got a really great rate, more so than what this person will book if they have to book last minute. Now we get into the weekends. Weekends kind of the same, 2 nights. This person's at 3 nights, so they're having a little bit of issues booking up. Excuse me. Now we're going to hop out into the Christmas time period. And right here we've got December 25th, Friday the 26th. There's our 25th. So I'm already booked up. I was at a 4-night minimum. That did not hurt me per se. I was able to be booked up, but looking at this versus the rest of the market, if I were still available, if these dates had not been booked, the first thing I would do before I come in and say, hey, let me change my rate down, is I'm going to take those 4 nights to a 3-night. It's much more reflective here. We can see this person was able to book at 3. These guys are down to 2 and they aren't being booked up yet. that would be how I would look at this and say, let's go ahead and consider pulling that lever and getting back to 3 nights. Now, you don't necessarily have to just go in and say, hey, I'm going from 4 to 3. You could be a little bit more structured with it and say, okay, if you're checking in on Christmas or the day after, I want it to be 4, but maybe we come in and if you're checking in on a Saturday, let's put it at 3. You just want to be as visible as possible in a lot of these situations, especially if you've got price labs dialed in. Sometimes it's as simple as making a quick tweak to your minimum length of stay, or maybe coming in and, adding a date specific override that takes 5% off, so to speak. And the last place we want to kind of check in is right here for New Year's. And what I can see for the day before New Year's, I've got a 4 night minimum length of stay. My rates are a little high compared to the rest of the market. So remember what we talked about. My January 1st rates that have been booked were coming in pretty low this year. Seems to be a little bit of a market trend, so to speak. But first thing that I notice is for this one, if somebody wants to stay with me, they have to come in for 4 nights. So they're going to have to book a higher price. They're going to have to stay longer than if they see these people. Ultimately, if I'm getting bookings from Airbnb and from Vrbo, it's probably not going to work in my favor. I may end up, unfortunately, pulling this lever a little too late and having to bring this rate down to here. So just as a test for this one, I would say I would come in here and let's change these 4s to 3s and potentially these 3s to 2s. So I'm going to take a note real quick, then we're going to look at how to pull that off. Now, we've done this analysis on one individual listing. I want you all to, for a quick second, to pretend with me. And let's say that this listing represents about 8 listings in Chicago out of a total of 16 of them. So I've got 16 listings. All of them are booked up for the peak periods, but I have 8 listings now that aren't booked up for January 1st. They have this 4 night minimum length of stay on the 30th and 31st. And I want to make a quick adjustment. And I don't want to have to go in and either do it individually, or I don't want to have to go in and totally screw up my group in case somebody books out. So real quick, let's take a look here. So I've got sky's the limit right here. And the group that I have it in is no short stays until 7 nights. So looking at this, and I'm able to identify within that group, half of them, or maybe a little less than half, aren't performing quite the same. But I don't want to go in and make a massive change to the whole property or to the whole group. Let's go over here. Got a couple of options how you can do this. You can do customizations, and we can come right here to the groups, and we can go right here. And you have what is called this group calendar. This is really, really handy. But again, hypothetically, we have 16 listings in this group, not one. I come right here. We can see my occupancy. Let's say you go to January 1st. And let's keep in mind the 30th and 31st, I had that 4 night minimum length of stay and then 3 nights here. I can come right here and say, well, let's change that 4 night to a 3 night minimum length of stay. I hit add and refresh. Now this will apply to all 16 of those listings. So it's not going to really impact the 8 that are already booked up. You can do this way. But if you want to come in and do something with your rates, so let's say we did 3 nights and we wanted to take 10% off here, this could potentially negatively impact you if one of those 8 becomes available again and it's got really, really high rankings on Airbnb, this could impact that. So what I would suggest for you, if you have that situation where, hey, these are high value days, we want to segment these groups a little bit differently and maybe have them interact somewhat differently, we can come right over here. And actually, let me delete those. I don't want a bunch of random stuff in here. Delete. So now again, talked about this. There's 16 listings hypothetically in this. I can come right over here, hit clone group, and that's going to create another one for me. So we've got that one cloned. I'm going to hit edit. And right up here is where that name is. I can change that. And I can say needs attention. Or low performing, something like that. You can name this a little bit differently, but by cloning it, you inherit all those other settings from the group. So you don't have to worry about, hey, is something gonna get messed up? I'm just gonna put test in here for now. So now I have this brand new group. Again, we would end up having to move our listings to that group. You can do it from any of the spots from pricing dashboard, from multi-calendar, excuse me, or right here from manage listings. So obviously we just come right here and say, boom. Now this listing is going to be the one that's not performing well, so I can switch that over. But once we get those listings put into this new low performing group, then we can come in with that group calendar and be really, really useful. So January, I'll come in here and say, I want to go to 3 nights. And for safekeeping, I'm going to take 10% off the rate as well. Add and refresh. And now for these, I'm just going to go ahead and go down to 2 nights if somebody wants to book it. So now I have that set up in there. This is a quick move for me on those 8 units. I've recognized that, hey, need to make some adjustments. Now I've kind of gone in there and taken care of that for myself. And the same token on those 8, get into November, and you want to make an adjustment, go right here, say, all right, we're going to be at 2 nights for that time period. Hopefully this helps you understand how you can really get in here and make a quick adjustment for yourself without having to completely revamp everything. Again, you can use from your original group, this group calendar. If you're really, really granular with seasonal profiles, you can go in there and tweak them from that group if you need to. But my suggestion, if you ever have something where you're able to identify like, hey, this segment is kind of a low performing version of this one, go ahead and have those grouped out a little bit separately. Once you get the response that you want, you don't have to worry about it again. Now you can go ahead, put those listings back in this group. And then next time that you come around, maybe it's spring break or whatever, you have this low performing or test group to work with. So, all right. With that, I'm going to take a look. Been a little bit long-winded on this. See what kind of questions we got. All right. Nathan asks, how do we tell when is the best time to promote Christmas and New Year's? So I think for that one, it's very dependent on your individual properties and what market you're in. But I think the best place for you to look, let me share my screen again. I'm going to tell you for an individual listing, or if you want to get like a broader market view, excuse me, market research, market dashboards, if you have a dashboard, is going to be the best place. You can hop in there and pretty easily identify the booking windows and the best time to make these adjustments. Not going to get into a sales pitch on market dashboards. So let's look at what we've got inside of the dynamic pricing tool. I'm going to have you come right here to neighborhood data. And again, this is a summary for last year. After looking at your booking window or your booking curve information, if there's any changes in there, you may want to, hop in there. The kind of the way I would say it is when we did our analysis and we looked at Thanksgiving and it was about 70 days out or about 50 days out was where we were at and needed some love. I think that's a good indicator that you could kind of look at it the same way. So we talked about 120 days out was a point for November where we started to fall back a little bit on our occupancy. Or I'm sorry, that was where we started to fall back a little bit on our ADR. And then 50 was where we started to fall back on our occupancy. I think if you had a property that falls, if you had this property we were looking at, I would say start running promotions about 70 days out based off of what we observed. Now, if I'm not able to look at your listing or whatever, what I would say, let's come in here and take a look at your market booking window right here in market history. Now you have summary for 1 year or 2 years here. I like having the 2 years because it shows us the trends over those years. But we can come right here and say, okay, so for November, about half of your bookings should have been booked about 23 days out. The rest of those bookings are going to come within that time period. I would say right now is the time to run a promotion for Thanksgiving. We are right at the cusp of this booking window. If you still have availability during Thanksgiving, now's the time to run your promotions if that's what you choose to do. Again, make sure your minimum length of stay is in line before you go in and do a hefty promotion. You might just need 5% or something like that. But right now is the time to to make that move for November. I think the best time for this particular property, again, we're looking at about an 18-day average booking window here. For Christmas, I would try to get that messaging and that promotion out there right at Thanksgiving. So think of it as people sit down for Thanksgiving, I'm going to run a promotion for Christmas. If I'm not getting bookings, my minimum length of stay is in line. I feel good about my pricing. I would look at that at Thanksgiving. And then for the 4th of July, I'm probably going to start that promotion. Really depends on where we're at. Like Chicago, I can see it's really last minute. I'm probably going to run that promotion about 2 weeks out. If you're in a more rural area where these booking windows are more like 30, 40, 50 days out, I would go ahead and start running it at about Thanksgiving as well. I think generally speaking, you can run your Christmas promotions, and not just promotions, like the marketing as well, right around Thanksgiving for Christmas. If you are in a more rural, a more destination, like a heavy drive to market, I would say you should probably, if you're not booked, right now is the time. Check those minimum lengths of stay, check your pricing versus some of your competitors. If you are over, then we need to, it just says I got signed out. So that's not good. Are you all still able to hear me on this webinar? I think we're good.
Yep.
Anyways, perfect. I had a pop up that says I got signed out of Zoom. So, but anyways, yeah, that's kind of how I would look at it. Right now is the best time for you to look at this. See where you're at with your booking windows. If your average booking window for November, December, January is somewhere around 40 or 50, go ahead and pull that promotional string now, that marketing campaign that you're going to send out. Right now is the perfect time for that. All right. So now there's Q&A. All right. Azila, let's see. When would it be best to start capping maximum ADR for New Year's Eve when it surpasses the market? Um, I think generally speaking, at this point in time, your rate should be really settling into around market levels. So like if I look over here right now, actually, yeah. So if I look right here, my rates are still a little high when we're looking at um, New Year's Eve in particular, but really where I'm falling at, because my rate's at 212, I'm falling about the 75th percentile. It is still a little high right here compared to the market average, that blue line that we see. You could look at this and say, all right, maybe I need to go ahead and get involved and bring my rate down slightly. But what I would say, because we're not in the booking window, so to speak, for this particular listing. Again, in Chicago, I come down here and look at my January. It's really about 14 days out. I would look at this and say, I'm good with where Price Labs has my rates. I can, I have a nice booking here last year where I can see that I got this booking around that same rate last year. So I feel confident in leaving it where it's at with Price Labs. Now, if you are severely underperforming one of your metrics, like if your occupancy is just tanked down and your ADR is still high, then that is an indicator. Let's go ahead and pull it back a little bit. Maybe bring it back about 10%. I'm never going to suggest doing more than 5s and 10% to start off. I think you learn a lot from doing that. But yeah, come in here if you think if your occupancy is behind and your ADR is sitting a little too high, go ahead and hit that and bring it down 5 or 10% if your minimum length of stay is in line. If your minimum length of stay is not in line, pull that lever first and let it sit for about 3 or 4 days, and then potentially make an adjustment from that. But ultimately, if you have any really, really in-depth question about how you're performing or anything like that, reach out to support@pricelabs.co. We pride ourselves on having really, really great support and being able to help you understand what's happening with your rates and how we might be able to tweak them as well. And sometimes it's as simple as just coming back and needing to make sure that we have that base price in line, or like you're talking about maximums. Hey, if I'm pushing up right here at 213, maybe I don't ever want it to get above that. Okay, that's a good use case to come in and just go boom, January. And then I've already got this overlaid, but I'm going to come back in and say, now I want my maximum price to be 213. So you can look at it that way. If you're concerned about having rates that are still really high right now, I think using a maximum as a date specific override can be beneficial to you. You just want to make sure that your rate is moving. And typically with price labs, it's going to move in the correct way. So that to me would be the best use case for your maximum prices. Now we've got a few extra minutes. I don't see a ton of questions rolling in. Any other questions to throw up? And I'll check the chat, see what we've got. Da, da, da. All right, let me see here. We got a bunch of questions in here. Ryan says, has Price Labs worked on a solution for pricing increases for shorter stay inside a longer set? A 3-day minimum stay at 400 ADR and allowing a 2-day stay within that set at 600. Ryan, yes, this is something that Price Labs has had built out for going on 2 years now. It's it's hard to explain it fully, but essentially we have this built out in our API, but there are very, very, very few property management systems and OTAs that allow us to send that back to them. So if you Ryan, if you don't mind throwing it in the chat, which PMS do you use? And then maybe we can start kicking the tires on that. But that is functionality that PriceUps had built out for a while. Property managers or property management systems like Cloudbeds allow us to send that. We've also got some other really fun functionality that we just need the PMSs to kind of update their side of the API so that we can provide that information. One of those is rate plans. So thinking about like, okay, here's my refundable, here's my non-refundable, here's my refundable with a pet, here's my refundable with a pet and breakfast. That type of stuff is built out for Price Labs, but there's almost no property management systems that have their tool built out to accept that right now. So yeah, I don't believe PropertyWare is one that would that we'll have that in with anytime soon. But if you have a contact with them, please let them know, hey, this is something Price Labs has that we would love to get for you. So let's see here. And I don't think there's any other questions. Looks like got some teamwork making the dream work over here in the webinar chat. So thank you all for helping each other out. Do we have any other questions or anybody in a particular market want to discuss their market? Feel free to throw it into the chat or the Q&A. And if not, I will give you about 13 minutes back and wish you all the best with Thanksgiving. We'll give it another second or two. Ooh, Ryan, best PMS with Price Labs. I don't think I can answer that. My my response on the best PMS is always what is most important to you. To me, the support when something negative happens, like when like, oh gosh, it's a Saturday and I got nobody else that can help me. I need to send this off. Who's going to give me a response early Monday so that I don't have to panic for a whole work day? That's the way I look at it. So what I would say is if you're in the business of trying to find a new PMS right now, send them a couple of emails to their support and see how long it takes for them to respond to you. To me, that's kind of the best way to say they're going to have my back. They're going to build out things for you. That would be how I would approach it. Yep. And then obviously in the chat, throw out any suggestions. This is teamwork. And if anybody likes anything, go ahead and throw it out there. Really, I think there's ease with the integrations of certain ones. Like some of the better property management systems are a little bit harder to connect Price Labs to, but overall they all kind of work the same and how the data is spit back and forth and all of that. I would going on top of the support side, look at the people that are trying to be innovative in the space and give you tools that maybe other people aren't. I think that's really important as well. Kim asked what PMS allows the rate plans. Off the top of my head, Cloudbeds is the only one that I know of. It's a little bit more of a hotel slash short-term rental one. But I do know that there are some PMSs, I'm not going to name those out because they don't have it built yet. There are some that are working on that rate plans thing. And I do believe Guesty just came out with their own version of rate plan. So that should be able to work for you as well. But yeah, thank you all so much again for joining us. Really appreciate you. If you have any follow-up questions, shoot them to support@pricelabs.co. More than happy to help you out. And again, thank you all for your time. It's great to meet you. Bye-bye. Close this out. I do appreciate you all. Have a wonderful day.